Hi, what I'd like to talk to you about today is a class that we did at our spring family camp meeting here on the farm back in May. And it was very difficult to video record this particular class because it was so hands-on and it's hard to get close up. But what that class was on knot tying and why, as homesteaders, you really need to learn at least a few basic knots. I've seen people tie a conglomeration of knots and put a lot of pressure on it, trying to maybe pull a vehicle out of the ditch or something like that, and then you can't get the knot untied because it's pulled so tight. But there are certain knots that you can use for certain applications. For instance, right here on this farm in the winter, our friends live up on the ridge here from us, and they have quite a steep drive to get up to their place. And my husband was outside and he heard zzz, beep, 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 and he realized that one of the neighbors was hung up on the ice on their driveway. And so we jumped in the Jeep and went over there, and sure enough, the wife of the couple was hung up on the hill and in the ice, and her vehicle was beginning to slip back a little bit. And if you've never seen it over there, that driveway, it's a mountain on one side or a big hill on one side, and then the drop off on the other side is really steep. It's probably, I don't know, 50, 75 feet straight down. And the back end of her vehicle was beginning to slip towards the edge of the road. It's a very narrow road going up the side of the hill there. Well, when we got there, she was pretty upset because it was a borrowed vehicle and she was afraid, there was going to be damage. And so my husband is a stronger runner than me. He ran up the hill to get her husband, and I ran back down to the Jeep and got a rope, and I tied her Jeep off to a tree to kind of help keep it from slipping further until the guys got back to help her get out. And I used a bowline on the front of her vehicle, and I used a trucker's hitch on a tree to tie her off. Both of those knots are knots that are easy to untie after they've been under a lot of pressure. And so I can show you a few scenes. I'm editing the footage right now from the knot tying class, but it's really hard to get a good video quality for actually tying the knots. And so I'm going to demonstrate how to tie a few of the knots that we went over in that class, and then I'll just share a little bit of footage from the class. It was a very well appreciated and fun class. So let's show you a few knots that we use here on the homestead. Okay, so one of the first knots that we did, and I think is one of the most valuable knots to learn on a homestead especially, is the bowline. This is the knot that I use to tie, as I mentioned, on my friend's Jeep. With knot tying, you have the standing end, which is the end that's fixed to whatever out there. That's usually the longer piece of rope. And then you have the working end. And that's what we'll be dealing with right here. This is the working end. This is the one where we're going to be tying our knot. With the bowline, it's a non-slip loop in the end of a rope, and you can also make it in the middle of a rope. There's a different, it's called a bowline on a bike. I'm not going to show you that one. You can look it up on the internet. And there's lots of knot tying videos online, but I just wanted to show you what we did at our camp meeting. So here's the bowline. You make a loop in your rope, and that's going to be your actual knot. This is going to be your actual loop. So you make a loop. I usually do the standing end, the working end over the standing end, like so. Maybe it's because I'm left-handed, I don't know. But anyway, and then you bring your working end up through the bottom. Some people say the rabbit comes out of the hole around the tree and back down the hole. I don't necessarily use it. So you just make a loop, come up through the bottom with the working end, and then I kind of pinch all of that right there, and then you want to go around the standing end and then back down that same loop. And then you want to take these two that you made, and so that's kind of what you end up with as far as the knot part. But you take these three and pull them to tighten. And the beauty of the bowline is you can put a lot of pressure on that and it won't slip, and then you can still easily just take and push this part right here down, and it very easily comes right back untied. And so that's the bowline. excuse me. Another knot, I don't remember if we did this one at camp meeting, but this is really good. This is the clove hitch. It's really good for like tying the mouth of a feed sack shut or something like that, or if you want to tie a horse with a simple hitch, you can use that. It's not the safest to use for horse. But you can do one loop like this, a second loop like that, and then this second one goes in behind the first one. And then say this was a fence post or what have you, or a feed sack. You put that down over and then pull it to tighten up. And then I kind of did the knot on the wrong side of my finger, but anyway, that's the clove hitch. You can also use this for like if the rope on your lawnmower breaks, or the handle breaks that you're pulling the lawnmower with or whatever, or you have some kind of, you need a handle to pull with, like a toggle, you can use the clove hitch. The way that you tie that, like if you have a post that's already standing around, is you put it around like so, you go under, and I usually stick my finger in there, and then you come back around and through that where you had your finger. And that's the clove hitch that way. Let me do that again because I got my hands in the way a little bit, I think. So the clove hitch, if you have a post like this, you come around like so. You're working in, I guess if you was right-handed you'd reverse hands, but anyway, I'm left-handed. So the working end goes under the standing end, and then I usually put my finger in there in the working end, come back around again, and then I put my finger, pull the rope under that loop that you just did, and that's the clove hitch if you've got a post or something. And you could put a fair amount of pressure on that, it won't let go. Now if you do this on what's called a bite, I'll show you that quick. This is a better way to tie a horse. You go around, you come back around, and instead of just pulling that loop through, you pull a bite through like so. Then that makes a clove hitch that, say if you've tied a horse up and he's set back and acting goofy like horses like to do, you can just come up and grab that and he's free. And you can really keep your horse from getting hurt that way. Okay, I have this set up here. I'm just kind of using the back of this chair. I want to show you another knot that we did that's called the taut line. The taut line is good for like if you're setting up a tarp for a tent or for a shelter. You can take this line and stake it off to a tree, stake the edge of the tarp off to a tree, and really pull that tight. And it's adjustable, so you can tighten it, you can loosen it, you can do what you need to with it. Okay, so you have it tied off on that end. I'm not worried about what that knot is right now. I just want to show you this particular knot. So you come around your tree or stake or whatever it is, and you're going to hold it to make kind of a cross over the rope here. So you're over the top. Then you're going to take this working end and come under but through this loop. Okay? So you're under and through the loop like so. And then you're going to repeat that. You're going to do that again. Under the rope and up through this loop here and around. And this time, instead of going on this side, we're going to go on this side and do the same thing. Okay? Now you can pull this rope all the way through like this. That's sort of a half hitch there. But and it will work. You can do that, and that's actually the taut line right there. But what I like to do whenever I tie it here is to tie it on what's called a bite, so that it's easy to get untied. So instead of taking that rope all the way through like that, I make a bite like so and pull that through. And then that way, whenever I get ready to go and I want to untie this knot, all I have to do is pull this and I'm basically done. So that was the taut line. That was another. And while we have this set up like this, I'll show you the trucker's hitch. The trucker's hitch is, I really like it, especially as a woman. I don't have the kind of strength that a man has to tighten down a load. Like if you have, like we haul stuff on the roof rack of our Jeep, and sometimes I need to tie it down if my husband's not with me, and so I like to use the trucker's hitch. It's really good for binding loads. So you want to take, this is your working end, you've got it around your I don't know, toggle or whatever it is on the bed of your pickup or the side of your roof rack. And then you come on this side that's towards the standing end, and you're going to just make a loop like so. Just make a loop. And then you're going to take this end and pull it up through the bottom like so. Okay? And then your working end will come through this loop, and you can really wrench that down tight. I could just about snap this if I wanted to. And that, you can see how tight that is. It's almost like a guitar string. And then to bind it here, you can just do a regular, what's called a half hitch, which is just to come around like I showed you, kind of in the taut line, and pull that all the way through. But again, I like to leave it on a bite so that it's easy for me to untie. So that's the trucker's hitch. Very, very handy knot. That's the one that I used from our friend's bumper to the tree. And then of course I used the bowline on her bumper. A couple other knots that we didn't actually cover at camp meeting, but I'll show you just because I have a few minutes. One is called the sheet bend. Like if you need to tie two ropes together, if you have, you know, just short pieces of rope and you need to do something. The sheet bend is pretty simple. You just make a loop on the end of your rope or a bight like this, and then you're going to bring the other rope, this is one piece, but we'll just pretend it's two. You're going to come up through the bottom, and then you're going to take this around both pieces, both the standing end and the working end, like so. So you have it looped like that. You're going to come up, and then you're going to go around that, those two pieces of the other rope, and then you're going to pick up that rope that you just looped around, and you're going to go under it like so. Okay, so that's what you have right here. Make sure I have it in the frame. And then you just pull it tight. That's the sheet bend. That's a nice way of connecting two ropes. Like if a friend has a little short piece and you have a short piece, you can connect them and do what you need to do. And then again, they're fairly easy to get undone. You just, you know, pull the pieces down and they just work right loose. So that's the sheet bend. Okay. So that's just an idea of some of the ropes, some of the knots, I mean, that we did at camp meeting. That was a really, really fun class. I enjoyed it. So happy knot tying, and I'll see you on the next video.